I'm not here to bring my neighborhood. Now, obviously, my neighborhood, Radford Street, it's in North Hollywood, in the San Fernando Valley, LA County, right off the 170 on Sherman Way, on Hard and Lauren Canyon, 6900 block, obviously. Now, my neighborhood started in the mid 80s, is when my neighborhood started. So, we were roughly a new neighborhood, small. Uh, my neighborhood in general is a small neighborhood, you know what I mean? Um, we're not as old school like as some of these other neighborhoods or as large. I'm not gonna come in here and try to fucking be lying, saying that we deep and everything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're pocos pero locos is how the saying goes. Now, where my neighborhood's at, that actually used to belong to 18th Street and Hart Street. Those were two older neighborhoods. Obviously, the north side, 18th Street, that is where they landed in the San Fernando Valley. That was where their neighborhood was at. And them and Hart Street used to have heavy beef. You know what I'm saying? Um, Now, some of our homies have family members from Hart, obviously. You know what I mean? And so 18 and Hart beefing, it's kind of like, because we used to get along with 18, but then you know, with the beef and tensions between Hart and 18th Street, you know what I mean. But we're cool with both of them. Um,
File.
It's the San Fernando Valley, I was born and raised. Off the 170 exit on Sherman Way to Little Canyon and Hart. Welcome to my place. Every single street where we spend most of our days. From Magnus down to Simpson and Tejon all the way. Mobbing up Indians on our way down a bend. Enemies slip on our hood, fool, you know it's your end. From sirloin burger all the way to Witset. From Volts to Vernowing, enemies all be knowing. The Valley Plaza.
Now here we have my neighborhood, La Radford Street Gang. Now my neighborhood is right here in the city of North Hollywood. San Fernando Valley, LA County, off the 170 on Sherman Way. So what's Hard and Lauren Canyon, 6900 block. Obviously, what you see right here. From Agnes, Ben, Hines, Gentry, Morella, Simpson, Vols, Dehan, all of that. So it's from Vols to Vernowing, and from Lancashire all the way to Valley Plaza. Everything in the middle is what's considered our neighborhood. Now, my neighborhood started in the mid 80s, is when our neighborhood was established. Now, our block, that block used to belong to another neighborhood that was called Hart Street. Hart Street, it's much older neighborhood. Not only that, but this is also the home of the Northside 18th Street. That when they moved from LA, out here to San Fernando Valley, that was where their neighborhood was at, on our block. And so 18 and Hart had beef, obviously, and we were cool with Hart. Obviously, homies have family members that are from Hart, so we're pretty cool with them. We used to be cool with 18 at one point as well, but then with the tensions between 18 and Hart, and then they also caught beef with Violent. 18 started beefing with Violent. We were cool with Violent as well. It was kind of like those things where they kind of just try to like have you pick sides and try to recruit us into their neighborhood, and it was like that ain't happening. So that's what created the beef. You know what I mean? Now, like I said, that was their block right here. Um, but now it's our neighborhood. You know what I mean? So what you guys see right here is what used to be Hart and 18th Street's neighborhood, but then now it's our neighborhood.
Harsher Block where we grew up and we bang fool. Valley Plaza Park where we chillin' sit brew. Harsher Block where we grew up and we bang fool. Valley Plaza Park where we chillin' sit brew. In defense mode, posted with the gates closed. Posted in the hood, you know how the shit goes. You can tell by the ghetto birds and 5-0s. Jita from the feet of strap.
Now, before I get into how the block became, our neighborhood, obviously, you know what I mean. I'll talk about the name, and how it became about all of that, So there was a homie started the neighborhood, who lived on Morella, and he was dating a hyena that lived on Radford. So he would always go to Radford and kick it. You know what I mean? Had some camaradas there. Um, now they would belong to the, because in the block you had two crews. It was the Simpson boys. It was the Nike boys. You know what I mean? They were like, the tag banging crews that were there. You know what I mean? And so homie will go kick it right there and everything like that. And then they start a neighborhood. You know what I mean? Homies were from the streets and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? So decided to start their own clica. You know what I mean? And obviously, since they're kicking it right down Radford, that's pretty much how I got the name and why I got the name, and how it was able to grow so fast. Because it was the two crews coming together, which is Simpson boys and Nike boys. You know what I mean? The older homies, they were either for one or the other. You know what I mean? That's why the two oldest cliques from the neighborhood is the locals clique and the youngsters clique. You know what I mean? It's pretty much how they divided the two cliques. You know what I mean? The Simpson and Nike boys. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much how it got its name. So when it was first starting, it was already large in numbers as it is. Because that whole getting crews in, that's pretty much been the formula. Because after that there was a crew named DNC, and then they ended up getting in. Stand for down and crazy. You know what I mean? So, that's what I mean. That's what started the tensions between now 18 and the homeboys, because it's like fools are getting deep, and then these guys are going at it with heart. You know what I mean? Heart and 18 beefed it machine. These guys were slaughtering each other, killing each other. You know what I mean? So, so it made like when my neighborhood was coming up, these neighborhoods weren't in their prime. You know what I mean? They had homies that were already locked up. They had gotten smoked. You know what I mean? Huda was on them. So estaba cabrón for them. You know what I mean? And then you had now this group of youngsters. You know what I mean? That are deep as hell and pretty much got nothing to lose. And they're there 24/7. They ain't got no job. They're young. You know what I mean? They right there running amok always. While these other guys are older, got family, got work, homies are busted, homies are dead. You know what I'm saying? They 18 thought because they were older than us that they would be able to like persuade us or try to punk us into becoming a part of their neighborhood, and it didn't end up going down like that. You know what I mean? While Hart always embraced us because of the relationship to homie being family members from them. You know what I mean? Because some of those guys, like I said, ended up getting into our neighborhood, and it's kind of like they say like, well, it's like Hart became Radford. You know what I mean? It's pretty much how it went down. So then now when we started going at it with 18, obviously we're deeper than them and fresher. You know what I mean? Active because they're younger, obviously. So 18 ended up getting booted out of the area. Like I said, I'm not trying to talk shit or hate or to insult them or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because they do put in work, and you know what I mean. Like I said, they're like one of our worst rivals. You know what I mean? So they have done damage and they do their thing. You know what I mean? So I'm not here to be insulting them or anything like that. It's pretty much how it went down. You know what I mean? That was at that time. Keep that in mind. So they ended up now going towards where the Lancaster and Swami was at. You know what I mean? And then now they started recruiting. They got deeper, and and then there was real war now. You know what I mean? But it's pretty much how the feud started between us. And Hart just pretty much, like I said, just became like our neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like they just pretty much, embraced it, accepted it. You know what I mean? But that's pretty much how we got our name. The first two cliques out of my neighborhood, because my neighborhood has 6 cliques. But those were the two first ones, which was the youngsters and the locals. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much like on the whole Hart Street block. That's why when I was covering the North Hollywood portion of it, I said, I'll mention 18 and where they started, because that was originally their block until now they ended up where they're at. You know what I mean? And what happened to Hart? You know what I mean? Like when they say like, oh, what happened to Hart Street? Well, technically it's like it became my neighborhood. Um, you know what I mean? And like I said, this will become like, you know, a thing like with crews, because there were several other crews, Players for Life, CMK, PBF. Uh, you know what I mean? As those crews ended up getting into my neighborhood, they just ended up just becoming like cliques. You know what I mean? Because after the youngsters and locals, you have the pequeños. You know what I mean? Which were the youngsters of the '90s. You know what I mean? So then when it became like um, the mid '90s, like already like the late '90s, is when the White Nose clique started due to one of the homies ended up passing away. Um, Homie wanted to start a White Nose clique. Homie used to love to pound. Rest in peace to the homie Lazy. You know what I mean? Much love and respect. Um, so it's how we ended up getting the White Nose clique. You know what I mean? Um, and then that was from recruitment, like crews like PBF, which used to stand for Proud Brown Family. CMK. Now CMK is a neighborhood. I'm not trying to put them down. I'm not trying to hate or none of that. CMK was a crew, um, which ended up their older homies ended up getting into my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Only like three dudes ended up just being led. So um, they're not they're not in the Hart Street block or all of that. You know what I mean? Like we were cool. It's just like I said, some youngsters I guess end up losing like the history or even the knowledge, and they talk without knowing. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not trying to insult them or nothing like that. Because some of the downriders from our from the neighborhood, like I said, they used to be from CMK. Like rest in peace, Spider. Um, you know what I mean? And so when they say like, "Oh, CMK is like in your guys' block or everything like that," like, nah, you know what I mean? Like they try to like leech on, I guess, for fame or whatever. Which I don't even know why they would try to do some shit like that, but I mean, it is what it is. That's why I said like when I'll talk about the CMK when I'll do this one is because, um, like I said, they ended up just becoming my neighborhood, and just some of them, like the three or four guys that didn't want to, just ended up doing their own thing or whatever. You know what I mean? And same with the PBF, Proper Brown Family. Um, and that's pretty much how it went down with that. So you had the um, Winos click, and then since those crews were getting in, the neighborhood was large. Like we were, roughly a new neighborhood. You know what I mean, and deep and active. You know what I mean, like getting it cracking, because we had something to prove. Uh, you know, we were the new neighborhood on the block. You know what I mean, and um, we were not gonna let ourselves get punked or pushed around or anything like that. You know what I mean? So we had to be that extra ruthless. That's why a lot of neighbors don't like us because they wanted us to bow down, and my neighborhood has never been known to bow down. No one started my neighborhood. Like no other gang started my neighborhood. We never clicked up with nobody. You never seen my neighborhood and like another neighborhood like ridden together. Like we're cool with the locals, Blythe, Violent, and everything like that, and like we chill with them. But you would never see us like like my neighborhood. We handle our own battles. You know what I mean? Um, so for fools to be like talking shit or like hating, but like they're over here like clicking up with other hoods or wanted to talk and say stuff that that are lies, because there's facts that to prove that they're lies. You know what I mean? Um, so that's pretty much um, what's up with that. You know what I mean? So that's already like in the '90s to the 2000s. It's when you had the Winos and the Avenues click. Running amok. Now, why Avenues click? The reason we chose to give it the avenues name is because every street on our block is an avenue. From Magnus, Ben, Hines, Gentry, Morella, Simpson. They're all avenues. So that's the reason why we chose. It has nothing to do with the avenues gang or none of that. You know what I mean? It's because on the block it's all avenues. That's the reason why it has that name. You know what I mean? And so that's already the 5 clicks. You know what I mean? Because TMK is the newest click. You know what I mean? There used to be a tag banging crew that was right there on the block. They were with it, homie. You know what I mean? People heard about that crew. You know what I mean? And like I said, they were right there on our block. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, when the crew hits up in your block, the neighborhood ain't gonna like that, homie. See that you get into the neighborhood, the hood, or you know what I mean? But for them, it was more like it wasn't like we punked them into getting in. You know what I mean? It was more like they earned our respect, and they were down to be from the hood. So you know what I mean? Like all of them homies are fucking with it, homie. From the TMKs, they earned their right to be a clique because when they first got in, they were part of the Winos. But the amount of work and balls and heart that these guys had, it was like they earned the right to keep the name of their clique. You know what I'm saying? Those guys were active, and I mean all of them, homie. They were all with it, from that crew. You know what I mean? Shout out to Danger, Grumpy, Ciego, Spooky. You know what I mean? But they're with the business. You know what I mean? Stomper, free Stomper. They're with the business. Definitely put it on the map. You know what I mean? So they were the ones from like the 2000s. You know what I mean? Like 2010 to what we're at now. So that's 6 clicks from the neighborhood. Obviously, the Tiny Maniacs, the most craziest. You know what I mean? But that's pretty much how the clique started, and all of that. And there's no clique banging between us and stuff like that. And although we are in the city of North Hollywood, we never write North Hollywood in front of it or claim North Hollywood like that. You know what I mean? We're more cool actually with some Valley and in some Valley. You know what I mean? In North Hollywood, it's like we almost beef with every hood in North Hollywood. You know what I mean? Anytime you hear North Hollywood, it's like it's almost on and cracking. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like, you know, like it's not something that we're proud to be like throwing out there like North Hollywood. You know what I mean? Because just of all the enemies that we beef with right there in NH, that it's just like, if anything, it's like we more NH killers than anything. You know what I'm saying? So we were never started by no other gang or clicked up with anybody or none of that shit. You know what I mean? Because I hear stories, I hear whispers saying that they were started by 18 or they were started by violence. Or there was we were always our own thing. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much how fast it grew. Why? You know what I mean? Due to like Simpson Boy, Nike Boys, PBF, CMK, TSS, some of the guys from TSS. You know what I mean? It's just that whole recruitment, DFRC, CAT, or TMK, and all of that. You know what I mean? So when we were right there, now on the Hart Street block and everything like that, we were definitely felt like we needed to always be doing that extra. You know what I mean? Because we're the new neighborhood, and we were seen as just like small new neighborhood. Like, look at these guys trying to come up. You know what I mean? So if people weren't gonna show us that respect, then homie, then we were gonna take it. You know what I mean? We're gonna be ruthless. That's why we beef it with so many neighbors in the San Fernando Valley. You know what I mean? Because we never let ourselves, bro. I'm not trying to boost, because my neighborhood is small. So like I said, we're not even old. Our territory is, roughly small. So, we're a small neighborhood. Um, we're more like a family, like that whole brotherhood bond thing has never been about like slang, make money or or just like it's more like, looking after, one another just because we grew up on the block, you know what I mean? We grew up in the trenches, so we know what it's like, you know what I mean? So uh, it's kind of like we had that, that pack, because our neighborhood is like, it's close. So you know what I'm saying? So we're not as large, because like I said, we were always taught that numbers don't mean anything. You know what I mean? It's not about that. It's about heart. You know what I mean? Heart and loyalty. Above anything else. Like I said, because all the neighbors that we were beefing it with were way older than us and larger. Yet here we still are. You know what I mean? And you know, it is what it is. Um, but yeah, that's what's up. With my neighborhood, um, and like I know fools want to say like stories like they'd be like, nah, these fools are ratas or like that that whole that whole insult shit. It never made sense to me. You know what I mean? And the history's only been three homies that have, you know, dropped dime. Like I say, you're gonna have homies that snitch. Every hood has them and everything like that. Yet the enemies that are calling us this, their homies have dropped more. Of their homies have dropped dime on my homeboys, but they're calling us rata. Like the fuck, no mames. You know what I mean? And we only lost five homies, like I said, to enemy neighbors, and so for them to try to be using that when we have like 14 homies doing that, like free Blanco, free Chuco, free Player, free Lucky, free Tiny, free Bird, free Stomper, uh, um, free Speedy. You know what I mean? We have like 60 homies that are busted. Got like fucking like 14 doing fucking from 100 and something to life. Like, come on now, dog. Like, if the hood don't put in no work, then let all them homies go. Then, what does the government have a conspiracy theory against us, framing us? You know what I mean?